Nice.
Nice.
Felt pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good little batch of games. I'm glad you and Tina had some fun with JaJaMaru, Randall. I was
Me
a
too.
little bit nervous that you were like going to be like, it was okay, but
No, I love it.
Didn't grab me. But yeah, I was so hooked on that, like just that feedback loop of just like, oh, new unlock, oh, new song, new whatever the new thing was. Just like, oh, give me more.
It's great.
Give me more.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
And I'm frozen again. I wonder what the deal is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And it's been a hot minute since we've all three been sitting down here. I mean, we've still been churning out the episodes every week here, but yeah, John's been on a little bit of a work trip for about a month. So yeah, it's been a long time since we've sat down to talk some video games here. So feels good. Got some chit chat out of the way before we got rolling here. So why don't we kick it over to John here for what you've been playing while you've been out of town?
Yeah, so I've been playing my resolution game for 2024, which was Disco Elysium, the role-playing game, visual novel / communist political drama that has been on my radar since it was released, and I've never gotten around to playing it, despite the fact that I had a pretty good feeling that it would be a game extremely up my alley.
Yes.
And wouldn't you know it, it is extremely up my alley.
Nice.
I've not played a ton of it, and I'm going to be continuously playing it, but from what I have played of it, which is several hours at this point, and still not made it past, I think, the first day, because my instinct is to just do everything. And
sure.
I am exploring every nook and cranny. I am talking extensively to every single character and going through every possible dialogue tree, because usually that is also a good way to encounter like additional story beats or gain new insights. But in case you are unaware, the game starts with you, the main character, waking up from a who knows how long drug and alcohol bender where you have completely forgotten who you are, what you're doing, and everything about the world. And you have a lot of these skills that would be in a typical normal RPG, like things like charisma, intelligence, or other things like that, are broken down into these impulses or voices in your head. And one of them is encyclopedia, which is just knowledge of the world as it exists. And the character and class that I rolled at the beginning of the game has no skills in encyclopedia, which means that I was able to have questions very early on in the game where it says, "What is money?" And it's
a bit of a concept, you see.
It is a great jumping off point for having like deep and huge philosophical questions, but also from the perspective of a alcoholic cop in a like fictional post-revolutionary city, like that's currently undergoing a violent labor strike between a union and a privatized company. Tensions are boiling over, and you are in the crosshairs investigating a dead body that is hanging from the back of the tree of the hotel you're staying in. And it is just right off the bat, hearing for me, Inland Empire is my highest skill, which is the name for the impulse of like gut reaction or like gut instinct. So very often I will be just pointed in the direction of things to look into, even though I have no logic, I have no reason, I have no anything else that would give me a reason to look into something, but I have this intuition which has not steered me wrong yet. And it's fascinating to see how that kind of defines or like colors the way that you interact with the world, because you're using your skill sets. And immediately I'm like, oh, I really wish I knew what it was like, and which I will probably end up doing another playthrough of this game with like all my stats in encyclopedia or all my stats in like charisma or savoir faire. Like it's fascinating the way that they've decided to compartmentalize and like conceptualize different aspects of this fictional world and like explode it out into just the most minute details. And it's fascinating. I've never played any game that deals with this level of care and granularity in this context. I've played other games that are just as good in terms of writing quality, but in terms of like subject matter and tone, like this is such a unique game that I've not played anything like it.
And you'd think they'd have to write a whole bunch of different scenarios for the different things you're bringing up. The type of character you decide to play as determines a lot of that, I'm sure, right?
Just an absurd amount of like, and I'm playing it kind of as, we probably should have put some content warnings at the top of this episode, but I've been playing it as kind of a recovering alcoholic, where I know what, like, I have electrochemistry is also a high skill that I have, which is the voice in my head telling me to like do drugs, drink alcohol, have sex. Like it is while other voices like Inland Empire and Shivers are very like smart and like very well reasoned, and even if I'm doing the wrong thing, like have compelling arguments, it is the electrochemistry is just a voice screaming at me to smoke an entire pack of cigarettes.
Chaos energy.
Yeah.
And what's like the actual gameplay like in that regard? Like, do you have to like do something to avoid smoking the pack of cigarettes, or like do you just like rolling the dice, or what's like the how are you interacting with things? Are you just walking around and talking to people, or
it would present you with a chance to roll the dice, and every like success or every interaction that like is more complicated and would blow things out gives you experience. So having a high skill of electrochemistry, I'm assuming, would mean that every time that I would smoke a pack of cigarettes, I would gain experience. Or every time I would suck the spilled gin off the floor, it might also give, like, but like that, it seems like it would just be easy leveling up, and I'm denying my character that because every like time I get to piece back together what I'm like when I'm like engaging in that, it is just horrific and terrible. And like I'm really leaning into a sort of like empathetic recovering addict, and like that means that I have to make the conscious decision to not go for some like easy experience and go the more difficult route, which I think adds another layer to it, which is fascinating and interesting. Wow. And like I know people have played this game like full fascist and like gone like, because you are a cop, and like one of these skills that I do have a pretty decent leveling in is Esprit de Corps, which is like fraternity with your fellow cop and learning about cop culture. Like there is so much in this game that like allows you to be wildly different people.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That sounds incredible. I love how open-ended games can be with game design these days. That's That's
But how much work is required to do that?
Ungodly amounts.
Especially for like a handcrafted kind of experience like this, where you can like it's handcrafted, but you're able to like kind of make it feel like your own story at the same time. I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty tall task. I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I can't wait to play more of it and like see how this one plays out, and then to go back and try doing things completely differently and see how different the game can be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any like frame of reference like of how long the game is? Like, do you have obviously it's going to be longer than typical the way you're playing it, trying to like do every last thing, but like that's also like kind of what's cool about the game is that you can do that, you know?
Yeah, I have no idea because like Outer Wilds, I have like religiously avoided spoilers on this game like entirely.
Nice.
And I'm ecstatic that I did that because like really going into it fresh and like having it like wash over me has been an experience.
Nice. Yeah, especially a game too where I feel like a lot of the surprises are probably like story driven to some degree, you know, so like keeping yourself kind of out of the loop on that is definitely nice.
Mm-hmm.
Holy moly.
But if you're good to leave it there on that, John, why don't we kick it over to Randall for a little to just totally shift gears here for some kind of neo-retro action here.
Yeah, couple of games I'm going to talk about, and they're similar-ish, but yeah, more neo-retro. This is my bag. I'm always living inside of my bag.
I'll be right there with you after this. So,
although you said JaJaMaru, is it Jaja, not JaJaMaru?
I heard it pronounced somewhere JaJaMaru.
Okay.
At some point when I was talking, because I think I had said Ninja JaJaMaru a couple times, and then I like saw a video and then saw it was JaJaMaru. Right. So who knows? But nonetheless, Ninja JaJaMaru is what I kind of landed on.
Let's go with that. Ninja JaJaMaru, the Great Yokai Battle Hell is the game that I'm going to talk about first. And
I'm so pumped you fired this up.
It's on your behest. You were the one that said, Randall, this is your type of game. I'm like, yes, I already bought it, but of course it's sitting on a shelf.
Yep.
As a part of that Ninja JaJaMaru Legendary Ninja Collection. Yeah. Strictly limited again because I had to buy the physical. But this is a series that goes back into the 80s. Like there's definitely Famicom and Super Famicom, and I think even one of them localized Super Ninja Kid. Maybe it didn't. All of these are stayed in Japan. I had very limited understanding or recognition of this series beforehand, just based on that primarily. But basically I just saw like, it's from Strictly Limited. Kevin says this one's cool, let me grab it. And wow, yes, I'm into it. What it is like it's like a 2D like it's like a side-scrolling perspective, but more in the design of like an old school single screen game, kind of like Bubble Bobble or like the
like
original Mario Brothers, not Super Mario Brothers, but the original like arcade Mario Brothers, like where you're jumping between what would you call that, like platforms that are kind of like
platform
rows,
you can kind of jump through them,
just like you can jump up and down
columns,
between,
or not columns, rows of
those, like. It's hard to explain, but if you've seen those sort of games, and some of those games are kind of making a comeback with Donut Dodo, and some of those things are not too dissimilar that way. But it's got that style, but basically they made a new Ninja JaJaMaru as a part of this collection release. I think it happened in like 2022, and it's freaking awesome. God, it's awesome. Like it plays so well. It's just so streamlined. It feels great to play. It's fast. The soundtrack's great. The visuals are pixel art, but really clean. Even though it's hectic, you can always kind of tell what's going on. You're not really, at least in my experience, losing the character that you're playing as kind of in the fray of things, despite it being pretty chaotic. And like, because it's a retro game on modern systems, they can kind of like up the amount of just sprites of your attacks and, you know, characters on screen at a given time. It can get like nutso that way, which is really fun. And it's co-op, at least local co-op. So Tina and I played all the way through like 3 worlds of it so far. It looks like there's like 6 or 7 worlds of like 7 or so levels each, plus some boss fights. There's lots of unlocks.
Tough,
yeah, it does. It really does. Like we had picked up, I think, on like the last level of World 3 last night, and that was a little rough to just jump right back in at that point, because it was like, oh shoot, like
without getting warmed up.
Yeah, because it's like the hardest level of that group, and then it automatically rolls into a boss fight with your remaining health points.
Yeah.
You know, you're meant to kind of defeat that too, which is not necessarily an easy thing to do, especially if a lot of these bosses have some sort of like verticality. They're kind of floating above you a lot of times, and you can jump up on platforms, but then you're exposing yourself to get hit. Not a lot of easy ways to heal. So the other part that kind of keeps this thing really engaging is that you're kind of gaining experience by the coins that you're collecting in levels. They're going into like a really cute like sprite art, sort of like cat coin collector sort of idea, but it's, you know, one of the Ninja JaJaMaru characters, and it's unlocking characters along the way that you can play as, and immediately, you know, oh, I unlocked another character. Let's go to the character select screen and, you know, try that one out, but going into the next level. And a lot of those are also the enemy characters that you're unlocking, and, you know, you're playing as those.
Yeah.
Those, you know, that's been a little tough to like, which one am I? You know, I've got like a little green indicator on top of me, but otherwise you look exactly like
you lose track. You don't have like a different color outfit or something. Yeah.
But it also rules because it's not just an aesthetic change. Like each one of those characters feels different to play, and, you know, attacks different. And it's not even like all of them are, you know, equalized. Like if there's sliders and, you know, if you do one up, you know, in attack, your health goes down. It's not like that. It's I think kind of purposefully maybe a little broken that way, as far as like this character's got like way more health and, you know, attack points, and, you know, has a more standard, easy way to control. So if, you know, someone's maybe not as savvy on this sort of game, they could still be a part of it and, you know, help. Or if you want to go the other way, you can, you know, make it more difficult on yourself by taking a character with very low HP and, you know, can only hop around, as opposed to like moving back and forth as you would expect, you know, a 2D scrolling character to, and might be able to attack up. Like I said, with a boss could be very helpful with that sort of thing. So that's kept it really engaging. Like I said, the soundtrack's awesome. I'm like pretty impressed with that alone too. There's all these games on this collection, and I've only booted a couple of them otherwise, because it's been such a no-brainer to be like, no, we're playing the Great Yokai Battle plus Hell, because, oh my gosh, it's too good. It's like, it just hits my buttons. Really like it.
Heck yeah. That was my exact experience too. Like I actually went to those like retro, you know, games in the collection first. And I was like, okay, just to get like flavor of like, okay, what can I expect? Because I think when I talked about this one on the podcast, I was kind of like, I went into this one reluctantly, but I was like, it's published by INN. It's, you know, just another kind of retro souped up remake, if you want it, whatever you want to call it, reboot. So I was like, I want to give this one a shot. And like, I just couldn't have been happier. And yeah, like that slot machine, like, let me just see what we unlock here. And like, it even helps you like learn some of the enemy behaviors when you play as them. You're like, oh, that's how that attack works. Good point. Now I know how to like dodge that a little better.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, there's like probably like, I don't know, 2-3 dozen different characters you can pick from if you have them like all fully unlocked.
Yeah, that like, unlocks
quite a few.
Huge. Yeah. And we're not even close. I don't even think we've unlocked half yet. So that's been awesome. And let alone, you're also picking up little like MacGuffin whatevers by shooting enough guys and getting a great thing on a given level. And if you collect enough of the MacGuffin whatevers, you turn into like a big sprite of a character in a very silly way, like, and it's a lot of it's callback to other Jaleco titles, because that's kind of the history of this, is like Jaleco is the publisher from Famicom on, so you can turn into like the car from City Connection, and you'll be like huge and like a blown up like sprite and just wiping out
just
the
smash
enemies.
Everything in sight.
Yeah. So there's just a lot that kind of like changes it up and kind of keeps you moving. Some of the levels seem like they kind of have kind of a soft time limit also, like just a little bit, as you kind of go on. Just some different little elements there. So yeah, it's super cool.
Heck yeah.
Along the same lines, I've also been playing Elevator Action Returns S Tribute.
I'm very curious to hear about this one. Yeah.
Can you tell these are Japanese games first and foremost?
Yeah, they keep it nice and concise on like these retro reboots.
And this one, I don't even know how much of a retro reboot you could say this one is, because technically Elevator Action Returns is a Sega Saturn game that was released only in Japan. So of course I had to get it for $15 instead of $250.
Good.
Yes.
No brainer.
Well, yeah, but the heart calls for what it wants. I saw it in the wild, and it was a decent price. And decent price is in quotations there, obviously, but I really, really like this game, and so did Tina. It's again another game you can play co-op. 3 different characters to choose from. They all feel different. Another side-scrolling sprite art based game that's again kind of traversing between those sort of rows of floors on a given screen. And this one is primarily kind of a single screen type of experience, I would say. I think you get some scrolling as you go on in the levels, but most of the time the action you're doing in Elevator Action Returns is you're trying to go between these different I guess like a way of visualizing it might be like hotel floor corridors, and like you only get between them on these floors, and you might be able to see like 4 floors on a given screen that you're looking at, and you can see enemies like walking back and forth, or dogs or whatever on one of those floors that you're not on, and you have to take an elevator up or down to get to those. The enemies can also take those elevators, but your objective ultimately is not just to kill all the enemies, it's to kind of disarm bombs or whatever else that might be happening in the red doors that you're seeing in the level. So you have to kind of get to the red doors within a certain amount of time, or an awful siren sound that's pretty high pitched and pretty screechy, and you can't turn it off in the settings. It'll make that sound like... Some people complain about Baby Mario noises in like Yoshi's Island. I think this is more annoying than that, and yet I still really love this game. And I guess it teaches you to get good, because if you can get to that door faster, you don't have to hear the sound as much or at all. But that's the goal, is get to the red doors. There's also blue doors that'll give you weapon upgrades. Mainly you're using you get a handgun that can shoot essentially all the way across, horizontally across the screen to shoot at enemies. You can kind of duck. Your character has a lot of movement control, but it kind of feels a little bit like, like a little Prince of Persia-y, like in like the kind of animation priority of the control, I'll say, which might come off as a negative, but I think you absolutely get used to it. And it feels good once you've kind of got it down, and the weapons feel different enough. You can have these like grenade sub weapons too, although oddly in this S Tribute version, that's not mapped to your controls at first. You kind of have to like go into menus. And I've seen a lot of that where like, it seems like this game, like they re-released it, in kind of an emulator layer that could have maybe been done a little bit better. It's a little clunky that way, but I'm glad it's available.
It's that it exists at all is the compromise.
Yes.
Is this on Switch that you're playing this on, or?
I'm playing on Xbox, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it is also on Switch. I didn't actually look ahead of time, but yeah, primarily because I've got that arcade stick that I really like.
Oh yeah,
Xbox.
yeah.
I just wanted to and I've just been playing more things on there because I can have multiple things kind of quote unquote clamshelled quick resume back to. So man, the production value on this game is so good though. There's like these cutscenes that happen. It just feels very mid 90s arcade because that's ultimately what, elevator action is at its soul.
Yeah, I was looking at some screenshots. It looks really cool. It kind of, I might just be thinking about this because it's a Sega Saturn game, but it almost kind of reminds me of like if Die Hard Arcade was like a 2D game, like the aesthetic of it.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I just love the shit out of that game too, man. Die Hard
same.
Incredible. This one has even like a little bit more depth of like movement and objective than that game does, I would say. And I still haven't, I've only gotten maybe a third of the way through it because it's not easy, at least on the default settings. We kind of ratcheted it down to easy after trying it a few times on kind of the normal settings. And that's kind of helped because it's still very engaging to play on that quote unquote easy setting with just more, health credits or whatever. It's fun. You can attack with melee attacks. You can hit these barrels that roll, and if the barrel goes on the elevator, then it can basically ride on the elevator down to a lower floor and then explode on those enemies. Like there's just a lot of little gameplay things that they've refined there. It just feels really good.
Yeah, it definitely looks right up my alley for sure. I'm definitely going to check that out. Elevator Action's one of those, like, I know the name of the game, like in the series and whatever, but I don't think I've ever really given the series, the time of day. So
yeah.
I'm glad you kind of brought this one to my attention.
Oh, for sure. And similarly, it's got the first elevator action with it.
Okay, nice.
As JaJaMaru had, the originals. So it's kind of a fun little
it's cool
extra.
to get that. Even if you don't even end up liking them, it's just cool to see that, this is the lineage that it came from. It's just cool to see that. Yeah,
agree.
But I guess just to kind of lean into that neo retro arcade action here, I'm just going to talk, you mentioned Donut Dodo, some of the more modern games here. One of the games that I've been playing recently that's pretty similar to Donut Dodo, at least in my opinion and experience, is Goliath Depot. We actually had talked about this one, Randall. It's another one from that Flynn's Arcade Publishing. Nice. And I think we had just shared it in the Discord at some point. It was, I'll add that to the wish list or whatever. So I saw that it had gone on sale. Scooped it up, and it's nothing crazy, but one of the things that I really like about this game, unlike Donut Dodo, that game had I think there was 4 or 5 stages, and then it just essentially kept looping, and then it would add some new wrinkles into the mix, after you got to the first stage again. So stage 6 would be stage 1, but then just with a new enemy added into the mix or a new pattern that you had to avoid. Where in this game, Goliath Depot, pretty similar, single screen platforming arcade gameplay, but there's 40 distinct stages. There's just straight up there's 4 worlds with 10 stages each. The last one even being kind of like a boss battle. So the first world, I'll say there isn't any kind of crazy massive amount of variety to the stages. They're all different and different level layouts and stuff. But once I got to the second world, I was playing a little bit more the other night. And I was like, okay, they're really starting to change up the level design options here. And they do have they throw some wrinkles into the mix. Basically, the core conceit of the game is you're just running around in this kind of warehouse setting, not too dissimilar to either of the games that you just mentioned, Randall. Just rows of halls that you can run down. And there's basically, but so these are the platforms are, it's not just straight up a hall of, flat floor or whatever. This is just there's a few platforms or maybe spinning, moving platforms or, elevators going up and down that are just on a timer. But basically there's just a bunch of doors on a given stage. And then you have to just close all those doors to end the stage. And then the only way to defeat enemies on a stage also is when you close that door, there's essentially a sound shock wave or whatever that goes to the left and right of that door, and then if that sound wave hits an enemy, it kind of stuns them, and then you can walk up to them and just kick them off the screen. Nice. And then they eventually just start respawning. After not too long, they just start respawning in that same spot.
Kind of original Mario Bros. Vibes with hitting the block thing to knock them upside down and kick them, sort of thing, right? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you got to get them in their stun state and then wipe them off the screen. But then, yeah, they do come back pretty dang quick. But they do have, like, I haven't played a ton to where I've been able to unlock many things, but even, like, I like the sense of humor in the game, too. Like, one of the abilities you can unlock after you get 80 coins is, like, the ability to, like, hold down and then press jump and like jump through a platform. And like right after that, like after you buy it, it's like, this really should have just been a core mechanic of the game or something like that. But it was kind of funny because the first world had exactly 80 coins in it if you like beat it all in one run and like didn't die or whatever. But I guess you can accumulate your coins. You can also spend those coins to use a continue, which I did on my first time. But then on the second time, I was like, oh, well, if I just save my coins, I'd rather just buy some of these abilities. But that's the only one I've unlocked so far is that ability to kind of drop down below.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you can play 2 players, actually, now that I think about it. I'm not positive, but I'm just picturing like the character select screen, and it definitely looked like the other half of the screen
was
available
co-op
for someone to play. Okay, nice. That actually seems super fun. And then they started throwing some interesting wrinkles into the mix. Like one of the later stages, there was like this like, you weren't actually like there was this spring that would just like, whether you move left or right, this spring platform would just kind of follow underneath your character no matter what. So you couldn't fall off the stage, but like you have to like keep kind of like timing your bounce to like get the full jump or get like a half jump and go underneath things and dodge them.
Yep.
But I closed all the doors on the stage and but the stage didn't end. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then you have to like leave an exit door, but it wasn't like allowing me to leave. And I was like, what's going on here? But there were actually like these windows that were open as well. So I had to like bounce up and like close the shutters on the windows. So like they're just throwing like a bunch of cool little wrinkles where like, again, like even in a more modern one like Donut Dodo, but even, you know, to go back to stuff like Popeye or Donkey Kong or any of those games, it's like, especially if you're playing like the NES ports, it's like literally just like, oh, here's these same 3 levels over and over, just getting like
that's all you
slightly more difficult or slightly faster or just one little wrinkle thrown into the mix.
Yep.
I just really have been impressed with like how this game like is throwing like a new thing. Even the boss battle was pretty fun. Like you have to, like time the door closes to hit the boss.
Nice.
And sometimes it's like fists were in the way, blocking the, it was just like a giant box, like with some fists on either side, but it would get in the way and block your little sound wave projectile. So I don't know, just like I've been having a lot of fun with that one. And I've been just really pumped to see the stuff that Flynn's Arcade keeps publishing, at least on Switch. I don't know if they're putting them out on other platforms, but I'm just like, man, another one that looks right up my alley.
Oh yeah, that sounds sweet.
Yeah, and then just another kind of arcadey game that I wanted to give a quick shout out to. I haven't had a ton of time to play this one, but yeah, another one that I just talked recently about too. I'm gonna save it for the cast, but I scooped this one up the other day. It just came out on Switch, called VIVIDLOPE. It's all one word, and you kind of play as this like kind of bunny looking character that kind of looks like almost like a Rayman style, like all these like disembodied limbs. And everything just like kind of like a circle, and it's got this very like Dreamcast era presentation to it. Not even just in the art style, but just all the menus, just everything about it feels like very like early disc-based system. Even a little bit, PlayStation, but it definitely feels just a little more Sega Dreamcast to me. But basically you're just kind of like, yeah, and it's got this like, the gameplay is 2D top down for the most part, but there is like a little bit of like a 3D element to like just the visuals in the sense, and there's a little bit of 3D, like you're almost on these like diorama rotating levels, especially as you progress further on. Like the camera and the screen will kind of like wrap around. I was getting a little bit further into the second set of stages here, and like you can actually, you didn't really need to do this in any of the earlier stages, so they just don't even mention it to you, but you can press the shoulder buttons to like rotate the camera 90 degrees at a time. And basically, again, the I don't think I said this, but the core conceit of the gameplay is there's just tiles on the ground, and you just have to run over them and change them to like the color that they're supposed to be just by touching them. And then as you get later into the game, they start throwing into the mix. So like not just touching them once, you have to actually touch them, turn them to one color, and then touch them again to turn them to the secondary color. And then you have to get a certain percentage of the stage completed before you beat the stage or whatever. And then it gives you like, once you actually complete that percentage, it goes into like bonus mode, and it'll wipe out any of the enemies that are left on the stage. And then you can just like basically try to get any of the remaining tiles left but you have like a power meter. So kind of your health almost works kind of like Sonic, best that I can tell. Cause it's like so fast and chaotic at times. I'm like, I don't even really know. Like, I didn't think I had a health bar, but like I'm taking damage and I'm not dying. So I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it seems like if you're running and covering enough tiles, you have this like power meter on the side. And then if you have that filled enough, if you take damage, you don't actually die. It just lowers that meter all the way down and like resets your combo or whatever.
Okay.
And then if you take damage again, but I mean, it's got some pretty cool gameplay. You can jump, and when you jump, you kind of go over one tile. They're throwing like new elements into the mix where you like have to grab a key, which will like then open new platforms, or you'll hit a switch that'll like trigger like a lever or something like that, and a bridge will, bridge a gap or something so you can access a new part of the stage. Or there'll be like these little warp bubbles that'll have you just do like a giant jump, which will be like a really cool like 3D effect. Your character just does this huge like massive jump, and just the way the camera kind of shifts just always looks really cool. But yeah, there's just like tons of different power-ups. You can pick up like a big hammer that you can knock enemies out with, but also it'll like stamp the ground and hit like all like, 8 surrounding tiles and cover those, especially if you get to and a lot of those abilities too. If you're on a stage that you have to like you go over the tiles twice to get them to the final color. If you're using one of the abilities, it'll just take them to the final color immediately. Nice. So you're really just kind of like, I don't know, just running around frantically, but I'm only on the second world here and it's already getting really freaking tough. But I really like too, like in the first world, I think you had 15 stages or 12 or something to choose from, and you just had to beat 8 of them in any order. And now the second world, you have to beat 10 out of 15. Maybe it was 15 out of all of them, but they just keep kind of ramping it up. But I like that, like, if you're like, I'm just stuck on this stage or I'm frustrated, like you don't necessarily have to beat that stage, but it's just one of those games where it's like, you're getting like the highest ranking you can get. You either get like an S+, I think is the highest you can get unless you're playing on hard. You can get a higher ranking, but I don't know. I just really like all like the presentation. It's got like the little like Pac-Man Kirby style cutscenes like before each world.
I love that stuff.
And stuff like that. Yeah, just all the little even like there's like a little like kind of anime style opening like intro cutscene that like just plays before you even like, it's almost like an idle thing if you just don't press start fast enough on the opening screen. But just, I don't know, just a really cool game. I've been, it caught my eye a long time ago. Didn't really know it was coming to Switch and saw it on the recent releases. So I was just like, oh, guess I'm grabbing this. So
nice.
Just been enjoying some little retro pick up and play sessions while I've been totally fried coming home from work lately. So
those are good games for that.
Exactly. But I don't know, any more gaming chit chat for this week, guys? Or good to wrap it up there?
Good call.
Wrap it.
Nice. Well, yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and pretty much everywhere else. And I've been trying to get back into my streaming habit again lately, although we'll see how long that lasts with how tired I've been when I get home. But yeah, until next week, we will catch you guys then, and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
God, it's such a fucking good game. God damn it. I'm so mad.
Wasn't there like some weird drama with the publisher and the developer on that one? Yeah.
Yep, the creators no longer hold the copyright of an intellectual property of it. Yep.
Oh, that sucks.
Yep, it's bad.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Love it when a
gross,
extremely good political work of art is no longer owned but can be then changed by whoever. There was talks of like Amazon doing an adaptation of it at some point.
Oh no.
My God. I love it.
Oh, brother. I do remember there being like a talk about a show now that you mentioned that or something.